top 6 Social Security spouse mistakes I see out there every single day. If you're new to my channel, my name is Ed Weir. I ran the 3rd busiest Social Security office in the country, and I help people throughout the country make sure they're receiving everything they're entitled to from all things Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, retirement, spouse benefits, and all the rest of it. So let's go ahead and get to it and go right down the list. So the number one mistake I see people making is in the divorce decree. This is pretty sneaky. So this is your ex-spouse or your ex-spouse's lawyer. They put something in a divorce decree that you're never able to get their Social Security benefits. They put in there that you're not going to get the dog or the car, whatever the case may be. That might be relevant, but in terms of Social Security does not care about anything like that written in a divorce decree. If you were married to that person for 10 years, if it was divorce, then when Social Security requests that documentation, they request the marriage certificate, they look at the names and the date of marriage, they look at the divorce, the names and the date of divorce, and if it's 10 years, then you are good. So whatever it says below that about you'll never get my Social Security, no relevance whatsoever. Nice try, ex-spouses and lawyers and all the rest of it. But there are exceptions to pretty much all Social Security rules in terms, like for example, the 10-year marriage. If you married someone for like 5 or 10 years and then you divorced that person and married the same exact person the following year by the end of the calendar year and married another 5 or 6 years, Social Security can add those 2 times together. Common law, some particular states have common law marriage rules and everything. But because there's exceptions to the exceptions, I do a free live Q&A several times a week, 3 o'clock West Coast time, 6 o'clock East Coast time. So make sure you subscribe and join me on one of those. Speaking of the 10 years, a lot of people make a mistake on the 10-year. 10 years is if you were married and divorced to that person. In terms of surviving spouse benefits, you can actually get benefits from a deceased spouse if you were married to that person for 9 months when they passed away. There are a couple exceptions there. If it was an accident or that person was active duty military. So again, there's always exceptions to exceptions. Again, 10-year marriage if that person divorced, if y'all divorced. And number 3 is a lot of people make the mistake as they were married to someone, let's say in their 20s or 30s, and they divorced that person. They were married for 10 years. And then they remarried, but then they divorced and they remarried again and divorced. Well, now you're single. Now you're no longer married. So you can actually go back on any of those ex-spouses. I've taken hundreds of thousands of retirement and spouse claims when I worked at Social Security Administration. If you came in there and filed for benefits, then that was one of the first questions you're asked. Is, were you ever married to anybody that was married that you were married to for 10 years? Were you married to anybody that you were married to when they passed away? And if you said, yes, I was married to 2 or 3 people, well, then Social Security would start going through all those records and see where their most money is. So just because you got remarried, if you're now single, divorced, then you can go back to a previous marriage. You don't have to go back to the last marriage. You can skip over it wherever the most money is. You always go for the most money. And speaking of most money, another thing that we do here is a lot of people are having issues with Medicare. If you're receiving spouse's benefits and let's say you never worked and you're not entitled to Medicare on your own record, if you file for spouses, then you can be entitled to Medicare on those. You know, Medicare supplements, Medicare Advantage, Part D. I have a partner that helps with all of that. Give Chapter a call and they will review your plan, find you a new plan if you're turning 65, and they're 100% free service. They are licensed and contracted throughout the country, so they can definitely help you out. Give them a call. Number 4 is, this is kind of a Social Security mistake. The Social Security Administration, when you call them up to see if you're eligible for benefits, one of the things is you're eligible for 50% or 100%. It depends on what type of claim you're filing. If the person, your spouse, your ex-spouse, is still alive and kicking out there, then you're entitled to up to 50%. So let's say you call at 62, 63, 64, whatever the case may be, and you say you go ahead and want to file for benefits on your own record. You want to see if there's any more money on spouse records. If your benefit amount is more than half of the spouse's, then you're not entitled to benefits. And Social Security will tell you that at that time. So I'm sorry, you're not entitled. The mistake I see is people think they are not entitled forever. So 5 years later, 10 years later, 20 years later, that person passes away, and people don't go out there and collect those benefits because they were told 5, 10 years ago that they're not entitled to those benefits. No, no, no. Now the numbers have changed. Now it's no longer 50%, it's 100%. So if that deceased spouse's benefit amount was one more dollar than yours, then you're entitled to that benefit. It's no more, it doesn't have to be twice the benefit amount anymore. Any amount over your benefit amount, you're entitled to those benefits. And there's a bunch of exceptions there. There's a bunch of strategies. Make sure you join my live Q&A and I can walk you through all the strategies. Make sure you're getting everything you're entitled to. Number 5 is a lot of people make mistakes and they think they can't collect spouse benefits until they're 62 years old. That is true if we're talking about living spouse benefits. Your spouse or your previous spouse is still out there alive and kicking, then you have to wait till you're 62 years old. You also have to file for benefits on your own record first. You file for benefits on your own record, and then you file for spouse benefits or ex-spouse benefits if there's extra money there. Surviving benefits is completely different. I talk to people on a weekly basis and they said, I'm 62, I'm going to go ahead and file for surviving benefits. And I said, why didn't you file 2 years ago? Well, I thought it was 62. No, for surviving spouse benefits, you can start those benefits as early as 60 years old. There's work limitations, which you join my live Q&A, I can go through. I've also done a bunch of videos on those. And if you're actually disabled, if you're a widow, then you can file for what's called disabled widows benefits, and that's from 50 to 59 years old. But regular old surviving spouse benefits, you can start those at 60 years old. And with all benefits like this, if you started at 60 or 62, if you file for your own benefits at 62, they're always reduced. If you file, anytime you file benefits from the Social Security Administration early, those benefits are reduced. If you wait until your full retirement age, then you receive that full benefit amount. Here's the big one I see a lot of people losing money on, making mistakes. Independently entitled divorced spouse. And unfortunately, Social Security employees are giving out wrong information on this as well. Usually the people at the front windows, they're generalists. They're not experts in retirement or disability. Independently entitled divorced spouse benefits is basically if you're 62 years old and you go ahead and file for benefits on your own record, if your ex-spouse is at least 62 years old, and you've been divorced for 2 years, then you can file for benefits on that person's record, regardless if that person has filed for benefits or not. It doesn't matter. You're called independently entitled divorced spouse benefits. So you do not have to wait until that person files for benefits. You can file for benefits as long as that person is 62 years old. And another thing is a lot of people out there don't want to file for those spouse benefits because they say, oh, my ex-spouse is remarried and the person has kids and I don't want to affect those benefits. They won't even know. You go ahead and file for benefits. It doesn't affect their benefits. It doesn't affect the benefits of their new spouse or their kids or whatever the case may be. Completely separate. They'll never know unless you tell them. So let's go out there, and if this doesn't apply to you, make sure you go out there and all those people in your neighborhood, your relatives and friends, let's make sure everybody out there gets the benefits they're entitled to and that they really need out there. And we'll see you at my live Q&A several times a week, 3 o'clock West Coast time. Y'all take care.